Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting for February 6, 2024. Mrs. Hilbrich, will you please call roll?
Yes, sir. Councilwoman Solis? Here. Councilman Crocker?
Here.
Councilwoman Scott?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Young?
Here.
Councilman Lofgren?
Here.
Mayor Bauknight?
Here.
And Councilman De La Garza will not be joining us this evening.
If everyone will please rise for the pledges, followed by a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move a couple of things around. First, we're going to have a proclamation to recognize VISD's 125th anniversary.
Whereas the Victoria Independent School District was founded in 1898, the member schools were Central High School and Victoria Colored School, and whereas through the legacy of their leadership, the Victoria ISD has grown to include over 13,000 students and over 2,500 employees, supporting 1 early childhood center, 14 elementary schools, 4 middle schools, 2 high schools, and 2 alternative schools. And whereas the Victoria ISD is the largest and most prominent school district in Region 3, VISD has evolved into an educational institution that fosters an environment where students can develop their genius and find their and whereas the present Victoria ISD School Board trustees are Mike Mercer, Mandy Lingle, Margaret Pruitt, Kathy Bell, Bridget Marshall, BJ Nelson, and Rick Jones, and whereas the Victoria ISD is committed to providing a high-quality education that caters to the unique needs and aspirations of each student with a personalized education that aligns with your child's interest, goals, and potential. Now, therefore, I, Jeff Bauknight, Mayor of the City of Victoria, do hereby proclaim February 6, 2024 as Victoria ISD Celebrating 125 Years Day in the City of Victoria, and urge all citizens to join me in congratulating the Victoria Independent School District on its historic milestone.
Just a quick word of thank you. None of this would be possible without the support of our city and municipal government. So we want to extend our best wishes and thanks to each and every single one of you. So thank you again very much.
All right, and now we're going to go into announcements and reminders. Mr. Garza, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. We do have several reminders for you this evening. On behalf of the City Secretary's Office, we want to remind the public that the City Secretary's Office will accept and continue accepting applications for a place on the ballot for the May 4th, 2024 election until Friday, February 16th at 5 p.m. The May 4th election will elect council representatives for districts 1 through 4. Application packets are available from the City Secretary's Office and on the city's website at victoriatx.gov/elections. On behalf of the Parks Department, we'd invite you to the ribbon cutting of the newly reopened duck pond in Riverside Park. That'll take place on Saturday, February 17th at 10 a.m. Immediately following the ribbon cutting ceremony, the Parks and Recreation Department, as well as the Environmental Services Department, are co-hosting a kids fishing camp for youth ages 16 and under, where they can come and learn how to or practice fishing. Limited space is available. For more information or to register, please visit victoriatx.gov/kidsfish. On behalf of Environmental Services and Keep Victoria Beautiful, we want to remind the public that we continue seeking volunteers for a cleanup in the north part of the Silver City neighborhood that'll take place on Saturday, February 24th at 9 a.m. Individuals and groups who would like to volunteer are encouraged to register in advance at victoriatx.gov/KVB. And for residents that are near the intersection of Callis and Odom Streets within the Silver City neighborhood who need assistance moving heavy items, we also are offering assistance leading up to the February 24th cleanup, and they can call Environmental Services for that assistance by calling 361-485-3230. On behalf of the Municipal Court, throughout the month of February, the Municipal Court will be hosting additional court dockets for people to resolve their past due citations and active warrants. These sessions are part of Warrant Resolution Month, a yearly effort to allow those with outstanding warrants to speak with the municipal court judge or prosecutor to discuss resolution options. Community service or reduced fines may be available. Please visit covcourt.com. That's a new one, but it'll take you to a direct link where you can search for active warrants or past due citations. For more information, please contact municipal court at 485-3050. And lastly, on behalf of the Main Street program, we want to remind the public that Main Street will be hosting a Mardi Gras shopping event on Saturday, February 17th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. in historic downtown Victoria. So folks can just come downtown right after the ribbon cutting of the duck pond. Attendees will be treated to free rides throughout downtown to over 15 participating shops, courtesy of Explore Victoria. If participants fill their shopping punch card, they will receive a surprise from Green Cow Creamery. And I'm down for that. So hopefully the public can come out. Additionally, Victoria Main Street program is looking to fill 3 positions on the board of directors. Director terms are for 3 years unless filling an incomplete term. To be eligible, applicants must be a Victoria Main Street program stakeholder, a business owner, a property owner, or a resident. Applications can be found at victoriamainstreet.org. The application period will remain open until all seats are filled. That's what I have for reminders. If it's okay with you, Mayor, I'll transition to some recognitions.
Sure.
Okay,
We have, well, can we do the Keep Victoria Beautiful one first?
absolutely.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I am here today to honor our Beautification Award winner, but I also would like to reiterate what Mr. Garza said about our cleanup in Silver City. Many of you have come to our neighborhood cleanups. These are where we help residents move large items to the street for pickup by solid waste, and it's a great time. It's a great time. We have hot dogs. We start with donuts and we end with hot dogs. You can't go wrong. HEB will be sponsoring our food this time. We are very thankful for that. And Del Papa Distributing will be sponsoring our refreshments. So we invite the public to come out and help. And now I would like to bring up Meredith Bird back there, our
Making a grand
chairperson
entrance.
for Keep Victoria Beautiful, to announce our winner.
First, I have to kick over your water bottle. Make a ton of noise. Good evening, everybody. I'm here to announce our February winner of the Business Beautification Award. And this month's winner is Central Drug on Laurent. As you guys can see, and you've probably noticed if you're driving down Laurent, what a fantastic job this newer location has done. They've really beautified that block right there in between Crestwood and Airline. They happened to seize upon an opportunity when their lease was up in 2018 to purchase this property, and it really, like the color scheme, the planters, just that whole property from top to bottom really looks fantastic. This business has received multiple nominations in the last couple years, and so this has been a long time coming, and they truly do deserve it. And so I'd like to present this award to Steve Branch of Central Drug.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you all very much. Real quick, as Meredith said, we lost our lease, and we had 2 goals. We wanted to keep Central Drug on Laurent. It's where it's always been. It's the Jalisco's Mexican restaurant was where the original Central Drug was 70 years ago. So we wanted to stay there, and then we had another goal. Sharice and I talk about all the time. It's kind of our mantra is leave it better than you found it. So those were the 2 things that we went into when we started. We bought this property. So anyway, here we are. We thank y'all very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Branch. Really appreciate the effort that you go to keep the city looking great.
All right, thank y'all.
Yep. Bye, Reese. All right, Mr. Garza, some recognitions.
All right, so these employees couldn't be with us this evening, but you might have seen us post about it on social media. But Joshua Blackman, Mark Gaitan, Timothy Leary, Reynaldo Trevino, and Thomas Turner recently earned their Class D water operator licenses from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. The Class D license is an occupational license certifying that an individual has the necessary training and experience to perform process control duties in the production or distribution of drinking water. And as I usually say, right, we're obviously very proud of our employees for continuing to invest in their professional development. The utility is one of the operations where we have the most turnover, and so it's great to see that we have some employees that have stuck it out with us. So we want to thank them for their loyalty, and even though they're not here, let's give them a round of applause for their achievement. Similarly, he could not be here this evening, but Corey Mullins, who's a combination building inspector, passed his residential energy inspector certification. This is his 12th International Code Council certification. And so very proud of Corey, and also very proud of his dedication and loyalty. And I also think he deserves a round of applause, even though he's not here. One person who is here, though, is our new fire chief. As you know, on February 1st of this month, our new fire chief, George Gomez, began his tenure as our fire chief, and we did have a chance to swear him in officially just yesterday morning, joined by some of his family, friends, and colleagues that came in from Dallas. Just very briefly, I know everybody's aware of this, but Chief Gomez comes to us via Dallas Fire Rescue, where he served for nearly 30 years, serving 16 years in the field and 14 years as part of the leadership team in diverse administrative roles. He accomplished quite a bit with the Dallas Fire Department, and so we're very excited that he's moved to Victoria along with his family and his wife to join our community and lead our wonderful fire department. As he mentioned yesterday himself, you know, our fire department is advanced. It's progressive, it's ahead of its time, and so we're very blessed to have him as our new fire chief. And I do want to put him briefly on the spot to come up and simply just say a few words.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for this opportunity to come down here and serve as Fire Chief for Victoria Fire Department, but most importantly, to serve the citizens in the community of Victoria. And I look forward to this opportunity, and I can't thank you all enough for this. So thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Glad you're here.
That's all I got.
Okay. Then we will go into items from council.
Good afternoon. All I wanted to say is thank you for everybody that came to support all the mayoral candidates and also the people from the county that came to try and vote. So there was a lot from what I understand, so I appreciate it, and I'm sure everybody else does. I want to say thank you for taking the time and the interest to help make the city a better city. Thank you.
Very well said.
I'm going to piggyback on that, and some of it has to do with Keep Victoria Beautiful as well. But first, congratulations to both of you and all the other 4 candidates for putting your hat out there and thinking enough of our city to do this. You guys ran excellent campaigns. They were clean. They were positive, and so congratulations. 2, I've never seen signs be removed as quick, and I think that says a lot about keeping Victoria beautiful as well. You guys, everybody that had signs out there, cleaned them up, and I know there's a certain amount of days to do that,
Right.
but you took pride, and I appreciate it, and well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Dwayne, congratulations, Mr. Crocker. Ms. Elise, you're such a class act. You always are. You always have Victoria at your heart. Thank you for running. I know your heart's in the right place, and very proud to call you a friend.
Thank you.
And really, thank you.
Thank you.
I also have one other item, and this is for a future agenda that I will not be setting, but we need to be thinking about it and provide some direction to city staff as they prepare that agenda. Per the city charter, since Mr. Crocker will be moving over a chair, seat a district seat, district council seat 3 will be vacated. And since there are less than 180 days, the charter, and correct me when I go wrong, Mrs. Lacy, but the charter allows us to appoint, call a special election, or leave vacant. So there is a pending election on May 4th. That's right, may the 4th be with you.
And also with you.
Yes, thank you. So May 4th, so special election would cost the city some money. And so your decision that y'all have to make and go forward with is, do you vacate, call a special election, or appoint somebody? So,
I would think that we could vacate. It's only, a couple of more sessions.
I would agree.
Yeah, I think we have enough for a quorum and we can make decisions and, we'll miss you, Jeff.
thank you.
I
Still got 2 more meetings with.
Okay.
Oh, there's 2 more meetings?
Yes, we
Well,
have one on the
before-
13th to canvass, and then the 20th.
You start it.
Well, I'm gonna say something anyway. I appreciate your service as a councilman, as a mayor. The city has been blessed to have you as the mayor, and thank you for caring so much about Victoria. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman Lofgren. That means a lot. I'll save my tears for the 20th.
So Mayor, briefly on that note, to piggyback off what the mayor just said, we do plan to have a meeting on Tuesday, February 13th at 4 p.m. To canvass the results, and then we will have at our next regular council meeting on February 20th will be the official swearing in of Mayor-elect Crocker.
Right.
So, Mayor, were you kind of looking for some direction up here as well? I know
Just
that
some
we
head
spoke.
nods. I don't think it's
Okay.
appropriate for a full discussion, but, it sounded like I heard kind of a, leave it vacant,
Leave it vacant.
Thank you.
so.
I have a very mundane, moving business forward item from council. We recently had some very significant rain. The area in front of University of Houston, Victoria, specifically Ben Wilson, typically floods. And I've asked Mr. Gill, and I don't know that he's going to make a report, but I asked him if he had inspected that area, and he had to some extent, and I did also. First of all, I wanted to say, although I don't know everywhere it flooded, I don't think it flooded with these significant rains. And I want to say thank you and hats off to University of Houston Victoria for doing for facilitating the construction. I know that the city is the one that's the contractor or using the contractor, but they've had a lot of involvement in the design and in the construction and in the funding. And I felt like council should become aware that I think through that rebuilding, I can't say we've fixed the problem, but I think we've made significant inroads. And Mr. Gill, am I still correct? You told me to wait until the weekend because there was more water coming.
Yes, it did. Remember, when U of H designed the project, they added some extra storm sewer for storage. And in addition to that, which we think is a bigger benefit, is the amount of impervious cover. By reducing that roadway, putting all the landscaping in, that makes a world of difference. But thank you for noticing that, and I think it's not solved all the way, but it's definitely an improvement.
Yeah,
Well, that's important.
that
because
Friday
that
night
was
rain would have been in the apartments that used to be there for sure.
Absolutely, and that was a sticking point for not making it worse. And the
Right.
fact that it made better is just a,
Right.
It's great.
it's
Great
great.
pointing that out.
So, thank you.
All right. Well, that's all of us tonight. Items from council, that's pretty good. Okay, citizens' communication. We have 2, we have Stephen Domina. And we have a 3-minute time limit.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here to appeal for a decision that was made about 2409 Port Street. It was ordered to be demo. It's a house, it used to be a bar, and I'm the new owner, and I'm trying to fix it and turn it to residential. So I believe it was 23rd, and the standard board made an order to demo the house. So, but since I just take over the building, I just want to appeal that you should give me the right or another chance to fix the property.
And Mayor and Council, he's referring to item E3 on the agenda this evening.
Okay. Typically during citizens' communication, we don't have a dialogue with you speaking on it, but we will, if you don't mind hanging out until E3 till we get to it, in case we have any questions, we can ask them of you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Von der Rohe, pleasure to see you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This is Michael Vondro. I live at 2204 East North Street. Congratulations, Attorney Cronker, for winning the mayor's race, and congratulations for Miss Elise is winning second place, you know, and all the other people in it. And there's a lot of traffic on East Rio Grande. You know, they're trying to get their Mexican food in the morning, and there's just like 20, 25 cars at two different restaurants, and it was a concerned citizen that told me about it. And I didn't want to name the names of the restaurants because, you know, most people already know. I don't want to embarrass them or publicly humiliate them, but I wish someone from the restaurant could direct traffic or put cones or stuff, because most of the cars don't even put hazard lights on and stuff, and it might be foggy and you're just going 35, 40 miles an hour, and then just out of nowhere there's a car, you know, and sometimes they don't even put their brake lights on and stuff. They probably have it on park. But anyway, I'd like to thank Chris Watts for his stuff he does in the trailer park. I don't know how he finds all these violations. He must have eyes behind his head. And on Silver City, Will Rogers Park, when I did a cleanup, and what happened, there was a lot of tree branches going through people's windows, and it looked like the whole neighborhood. And, you know, some of them are paying like $1,000 a month, and the landlord by law has to trim the branches, but he won't, and they're scared to say anything because they're scared of getting evicted. But I wish someone could tell the landlord or landlords on that Will City Park, on the area, you know, to trim those, because he's required by law to do it. That's the landlord's responsibility, and they make exorbitant amounts of rent, and in return, they don't get no service. So I was hoping someone could take care of it. Thanks, and have a good day. Appreciate it.
Thank you. With that, we'll close citizens' communication and go into item, sure, come on.
Thanks.
Yeah, I saw him come in.
I'm not
You
sure
bet.
how the system works.
Yeah, just in the future, just turn in a green card, but no worries. I saw you come in late.
Okay, sorry
good.
about that. I wanted to come down. I normally come down to bawl you guys out, but I'm not, okay? I appreciate what you do, really, to be honest with you. But I ran into two employees that did me a good deed, and I want to tell you about them. They're not from engineering. Engineering always is good, okay? That's the one group that always communicates very well with me. But this is the Assistant Director of Finance. I may have it wrong, but Wesley Janacek and his cohort, Michelle Ozuna, a manager there. I had a problem. It goes back a ways, and they were very efficient. It shows starting at the top and working down works well, okay? They did a good job, and I want to give him credit for it, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate what you guys do for us, too. I know you don't hear that too often, huh? Maybe not often enough. I don't know, but I appreciate it.
Would you mind just stating your name just for the record so we have it?
Fine. John Swanson.
Yes, sir.
I live at Cannon Road.
Yep.
And I'm used to a huge clock here somewhere that, boy, and for a while you had a banister. You know, when I first came to Victoria, I could walk right up on that floor
Nice.
there and talk right to the council. It was fun. You know, when I first came here too, you could walk right into the county courthouse, go right to the back, right where the records were. It was fascinating. They got a lot of stuff there. You can't do that anymore. Times are different, so
Great.
they are
Thank
what
you.
they are.
Appreciate you coming up here and recognizing those two fine employees.
They did good.
Thank you so much for that.
This tape really keeps people away.
And I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, with that, we'll close citizens' communication, and we're going to go into items with public hearings. And we can do everything in order?
I don't know.
Not quite yet, okay. Okay.
Well, for sure, we'll take C1 in order.
C1, and then we'll see if we got to go C3 before C2.
Item C1 is an ordinance ordering the joint general election between the State of Victoria, Victoria County Drainage District Number 2, Victoria County Drainage District Number 3, Victoria County Junior College, Victoria County Appraisal District, and Victoria Independent School District on May 4th, 2024, for City Council District 1, City Council District 2, City Council District 3, and City Council District 4.
This one should be fun. Una ordenanza estableciendo una elección general conjunta entre la ciudad de Victoria, Condado de Victoria, Distrito de Drenaje número 2, Condado de Victoria, Distrito de Drenaje número 3, Condado de Victoria, Colegio Junior, Distrito de Tasación del Condado de Victoria y Victoria Distrito Escolar Independiente de Victoria el sábado 4 de mayo del 2024 para el Distrito 1 del Consejo Municipal, Distrito 2 del Consejo de la Ciudad, Distrito 3 del Consejo de la Ciudad y Distrito 4 del Consejo de la Ciudad. Lectura de emergencia.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you all very much for reading those. He asked me before if I was reading the Spanish. I was thinking they do not want to hear me butcher that.
I would have voted for Miss Lacy.
So, good evening, Mayor and Council. The ordinance before you tonight does order that joint general election for Districts 1 through 4, which is scheduled for May 4th, 2024. Several other entities will be participating in this election, which helps with costs. Elections Administrator Hill will serve as the early voting clerk, as well as will be administering the election. Brenda Hens-Eckel will serve as the presiding judge over the early voting ballot board. There will be 23 polling places, or 26, I'm sorry, polling places open on voting day, and voters can vote at any of the locations. Even if it's out in the county, you can vote there. Filing for a place on the ballot began on January 17th, and the deadline is February 16th. Because the election must be ordered no later than the 78th day before the election, this item is on emergency reading.
Thank you. At this time, we will open up item C1, public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak on this item, please come to the front mic. Seeing no one get up, we will close the public hearing and entertain any motions.
I so move.
I'll second.
We
I
got a
just have a correction.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve item C1. You have a,
Okay, on where it says para el Distrito Primero del Consejo Municipal, it should say del Consejo de la Ciudad. You got District 1, 2, 3, 4,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it says Municipal, and it should be del Distrito, del Consejo
Sorry,
de la
Yeah, to be
Ciudad.
consistent.
Yeah, I
Yes.
literally copy and paste that from the translators. I can't read it. Actually, Jesus had me change one word, and I had to get Victoria to help me with that.
Okay,
Yeah, I should have caught that too. I'm sorry.
okay,
nothing we need to formally amend, though.
no, just one,
Just the document, okay.
yeah.
All right, is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Item C3.
Item C3 is an ordinance increasing solid waste fees for hazardous household waste pickup. This item is on first reading.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and congratulations to both. So there's things I hate bringing to council, but unfortunately, I have to from time to time. And so this is one of them. Over the past 2 years, as part of our waste management contract, they pick up our household hazardous waste to the tune of a little over 50 tons a year. That keeps that computers, TVs, chemicals, those hazardous items out of our landfill. So last year and this year, we had rate increases from Waste Management. We absorbed the one last year, and we temporarily absorbed the one this year. But what I'm asking council, there it goes. So this would change the ordinance in section 24.141 solid waste collection code. So let's just get to the meat of it. There it is. Currently, we charge 70 cents a home per month. The increase would be 10 cents per home per month. Just remind council, we didn't raise last year. This is the raise this year. We've taken 2 increases, but we're only doing 1 increase here. And the increase is 10 cents, so it'll be 80 cents per home per month for household hazardous waste pickup. So about $1.20 a year additional added to their annual bill. And I'll answer any questions.
Would you? Wondering where that $1.20 came from. I just figured it out.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you, more as an advertisement than anything, just give us a few details about the program, because a lot of people are not aware.
So that's a great question. We provided this since 2012. Is when we started this program, and we put it out as much as possible. It is a program that will take care of any household hazardous waste. So that's chemicals, computers, TVs, paint, oil, paint filters, fluorescent light bulbs, all those types of things that we don't want going into our landfill. And so it's as simple as going to our website, getting the phone number, and no, I don't know it by heart, and I should be ashamed, I know, but calling the 800 number. Now, you don't put this out at the curb. They're going to tell you when they're going to come pick it up. They're going to send you a package in the mail, so there's usually a 1 or 2 week delay. This package will come. It's got a big plastic bag in it. It's got labels. It's got tie straps, different things, so that you can, if you've got liquids, you can put them in that plastic so they don't spill. On the day that they tell you they're going to be there, you set it out by your front door, not out by the street, so that there's no confusion. They come up by your front door, they pick it up, they load it in their truck, and they take it off. You will receive in the mail a card, a comment card to rate the service. And I say this every year because I've only had one that was rated not good or excellent, and the only complaint was they had a bunch of TVs and we would only take 2 at a time or 1 at a time. So if you've got multiple TVs, they're probably only going to take 1 or 2 at a time. But you can use this service as many times as you want during the year. There is no limit.
They take batteries also.
They do take batteries, but I encourage people to take their batteries to Interstate because you don't have to wait. You can take that right away. And Interstate even pays for some batteries, like automotive batteries and things like that, a recycle. So you can get money for that. And I'll answer any other questions.
All right. If no other questions, at this time, we'll open up item C3's public hearing. Anybody wish to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing no one come up, we will close the public hearing and entertain any motions.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve it. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll go to item C2.
Item C2 is an ordinance authorizing the issuance, sale, and delivery of certificates of obligation Series 2024 and a maximum principal amount not to exceed $59 million, approving and authorizing all other instruments and procedures related thereto, and providing for an immediate effective date. This item is also on emergency reading.
Do you need to stretch, Mr. Trailer? Warm up your voice?
Might need to do. Got one, I believe.
It's always a pleasure to see you.
Who?
I think we have one already.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
We hate trees.
Good evening, everyone. Again, for the record, Dusty Traylor, Managing Director with RBC Capital Markets. Obviously, the presentation this evening is just a report on the sale of the city's Certificates of Obligation, Series 2024. We were in the market today to sell those Certificates of Obligation, so I want to just go through that real quickly with you guys. Is there a clicker to proceed to the next page? Great.
There is an updated slide that we're going to try and pop up on the projector here.
Yes.
Manually.
The overhead?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, man. Gotta love it. That inside joke was going to come full circle at some point, right?
So, just real quickly before we get into the numbers, just real on the financing team involved, ourselves, RBC Capital Markets as financial advisor, bond counsel, McCall, Parkhurst, and Horton, and Jay Juarez is your bond attorney with McCall. He is here this evening and can answer any of the legal questions. Our underwriters for the transaction, they were led by Frost Bank as a senior and two co-managers, BOK Financial Securities and Samco Capital Markets. Then their counsel, then the paying agent is Wilmington Trust. They're the folks that will be submitting to the city the semi-annual debt service payments. The pricing date was today, and we're going to move up the delivery date to actually February 27th of this month. It's probably about 10 days or so shorter than what we'd originally anticipated. So that means the city will be getting its money into its bank account about 10 days sooner than originally planned. First payment date is August 15th, 2024. The bond rating is AA, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the presentation. And we really had a favorable day in the market, a favorable time in the market over the past probably 8 to 12 weeks. Our all-in TIC is a 3.688%. The federal ARB yield on the bonds is a 3.286. Gilbert asked me this question today. Does this surprise me? Well, it doesn't surprise me based on the market conditions of the past couple of weeks, but it certainly surprises me based upon the market conditions of, say, this time last year and where the market was heading, or even as recently as the middle of October, November. A result like this really surprises me. To be able to deliver 20-year fixed rate COs for the city of Victoria right now at less than a 4% interest rate, much less than 3 3/4. You know, really great result, and going to show you guys how that impacts the long-term debt service here in just a minute. Before I go into that, I just got to, you know, we talked about the financing team that's involved in the transaction. There's a group that's missing from that, and the group that's missing from that financing team is the city of Victoria. Your administrative staff, led by Jesus and his team, Gilbert, Wesley, everybody involved, and then of course it also comes full circle back to this council. Just the job you guys do implementing policies for the city of Victoria and the vision for the city of Victoria. When you guys passed this notice of intent to move forward with these COs, we of course got started immediately with the issuance process, but your team, your internal team, got started with the issuance process, and that really culminated with a visit with Standard & Poor's to go visit with S&P in person about the city's bond rating. And if you would have been present in that room, I don't think any of you could have possibly been more proud of the job that your team did in representing you in those meetings and selling the real quality of the city of Victoria. Now that resulted in an affirmation of our outstanding bond rating at the AA, and we're all pushing eventually to get that thing up in the AA plus. But your AA rating is nothing to sneeze about. And your team just does a fantastic. I'd put them up against anybody across the state in the stuff that they do representing the city. So I just want to say that.
Thank you.
You bet. Principal amount of the certificates of obligation is actually not $59 million. It is $53,645,000, the difference being made up by a premium paid by the investors on the COs. But we will be depositing to the city's project fund the full $59 million for your projects. And then this slide really, well, we've got another slide to pull up here, actually. Is it up? Well, if you guys have the hard copy.
Yes.
Do what? In the hard copy that you've got in front of you, that Gilbert passed out, what we show is our annual debt service on this CO as compared to what was originally budgeted and estimated for the annual debt service on this, and it's on the screen now. The punchline is, had we have experienced the interest rates that we were experiencing, say, this time last year, our annual debt service cost on this CO would have been about $520,000 per year more expensive. So thanks to reduction in interest rates that we have experienced over this time, the interest cost for the city of Victoria is reduced by approximately $10.2 million over what was originally budgeted, which is, I think, fantastic. And then another thing that I think, you guys are aware of, and another thing to point out here is, the first 10 years of this transaction, the city will be subsidizing the debt service payments by approximately $1 million with other funds to help reduce the INS tax rate impact on these bonds, which there should be none.
Dusty?
Yes, sir.
Just make sure council is aware that we did some heavy-duty planning back a year ago and come up with those rates. Back then, you were looking at 4.5 to 4 3/4 interest rate.
That's right.
So that explains the delta. I don't want to make sure that everybody sees that I didn't have any magical bullets that I couldn't figure out what that rate will be, about 3.67. That's why I asked him this morning. It's like, that's crazy. But anyway, just want to let you know, back then, we were like an over 4% easy. If we went to the market at that time.
Yeah, if we would have been to the market at that time, that's likely where we would have been. This page, we talk about the outstanding bond ratings of the city of Victoria. Our GO ratings are AA by both S&P and Fitch, and then the utility system rating is AA minus by S&P and AA by Fitch. Obviously, this is just a GO-type credit, so that's what we did with this particular rating. But S&P in the rating report noted a number of things. Positive history of operating surpluses and strong reserves here at the city, robust financial policies, good financial policies and practices, adequate debt profile, and well-funded pension and OPEBs. And then here are the final bullet point. S&P indicates that they could in the future raise the rating if the city's wealth and income levels improve materially to levels commensurate with those of higher rated peers. That's a lot of words, but I'll tell you what I believe it means. All of those bullet points, all those first 4 bullet points are the parts of the rating that the city has direct control over. And S&P is telling you those are very, very good, and they actually would probably on their own be able to put you in the upper category. However, an item that you guys just simply don't have direct control is just wealth and income levels here locally as rated to, national AA plus peers. We get those levels up, and I know that, we would say, oh, that's not a metric that you can directly influence. I know Jesus Garza is trying to directly influence that, and this council is trying to influence bringing additional jobs here that are higher paying. We continue to see that. We're going to see those levels come up, and then we ultimately get that higher rating. And then here, just kind of giving you guys a breakdown of the other bond ratings across the state. The AA rating, there's 22% of the municipalities in Texas are rated AA. Only about 24% of the ratings in the state are higher than that AA. The other ratings in the state are either equal to or lower than where you are. you guys are in a, you know, like I said, that AA rating is very, very good. And that really concludes my presentation. Okay. I would be more than
Dusty, I got
happy
a-
to answer any questions that anybody has, or if y'all have questions for Jay, I know he'd love to answer them.
So I had a question in regards to that last slide you had with the other Texas cities. How many of those above us in the AA plus or AAA are a city our size? Are they mostly larger cities?
You know, mostly the larger cities are ahead of you. There are cities your size that are also in that AA plus category, maybe even in the AAA category. The difference is most of those cities lie in the suburban metro areas of Dallas, Austin, Houston, where those wealth and income metrics are already higher.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
It's not a fair benchmark.
It's really not. That's, I mean, it's not.
We tried.
I appreciate y'all going up there and visiting with them, and, you know, we know why we can't get up to that AA plus. It's not from financial management. It's something that's out of our control.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Traylor.
Thank you all.
All right, at this time, we will open a public hearing on item C2. Anybody wishing to speak on this item, please come to the microphone. Seeing no one come up to the microphone, we will close the public hearing and entertain any motions.
I move we adopt.
Second?
Got a motion and a second to approve item C2. Is there any further discussion? I got one question. Have we passed anything like this for public safety ever? No. Big step. Big step. Okay. With that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good to see everybody.
Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. All right. We're back onto the consent agenda now. Ms. Hilbrich.
Item D1 is the adoption of minutes of the regular meeting held on January 16, 2024. Item D2 is a resolution approving the purchase of Beck actuators for the surface water treatment plant from Harold Beck and Sons Incorporated in the amount of $54,946.25. Item D3 is a resolution approving an amendment to the advanced funding agreement and to Resolution 2022-204 for the reconstruction of the Spring Creek Briggs Boulevard Bridge through the Federal Off-System Bridge Program administered by the Texas Department of Transportation. Item D4 is a resolution approving a variance to Section 21-83A7 for a property located at 2502 East Mockingbird to allow for an expansion that encroaches into the minimum rear yard setback to encroach the minimum rear yard setback. Item D5 is a resolution approving a third amendment to the master agreement with New Edge Services LLC to migrate environmental services database to the existing CityWorks system in an amount of $7,280 for a total amount not to exceed $419,680. And item D6 is a resolution approving the investment policy and list of qualified brokers.
I'll move for approval of the consent agenda as read.
Second?
A motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. E1.
Item E1 is a resolution amending the contract with Spall Glass Contractors Incorporated for services as a construction manager at risk for the Public Safety Headquarters to establish a guaranteed maximum price for up to $47,216,307 and modify the terms of the original agreement.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This feels like it's been a long time coming, but I'm very happy we're here doing this. I'm happy we get to do it before you leave us, Mayor. And so tonight I do have with me Michael Rayleigh from Spa Glass, and we have Kendra Hickman as well from AGCM. So they'll be able to answer questions or fill in any blanks that may miss. So real quickly, as a recap, for this project, we are pursuing a construction manager at risk delivery method. This is in contrast to most other projects that we've done as design build or design bid build, right? So what we're doing is we've hired Spa Glass to build the project and from a point in design, assume all the risk of that project. This is that point, right? I've also added to this slide on our project team, you've already approved the commissioning contract. The people who are gonna test the systems and make sure that things are working and that we know how to work them and maintain them. And immediately after this, I'll ask you to approve the materials testing contract. Neither of those are part of this GMP discussion, which is why I wanted to make sure I highlighted them separately. They are part of the project budget, but they're not part of this amount that we're gonna be talking about. Real quick on a timeline, and this is slightly different than the one that was in your packet. So we began in October 2022 when you approved a contract for $2.8 million with FGMA to design this project as an architecture firm. They in tandem use RMA architects locally for a lot of the local stuff. Then in February, we also brought on AGCM as our owner's rep. In March 2023, we completed the schematic design process, and at the end of that process, did our procurement for a construction manager, and that's when we hired in June Spa Glass. Then this past June, we also completed the design development stage and entered the construction document phase. And what I had shown you before, and it was kind of based on our earlier schedule of having construction documents complete last month. And it turned out that when we got to the complete part, our folks at Development Services made sure that we're doing it right, and they said, no, change a few things, so they're not complete yet. We're correcting a few things on our site plan, so. But today, ideally, we'll do, and that should say February 2024, but that should say that we should approve the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price today. After we make some revisions and satisfy the requirements in Development Services, we should have construction documents complete. And then in March, we should see actual dirt moving. So we'll do a groundbreaking before all that happens, but I'll get to that in a moment. All right, let's talk about the guaranteed maximum price. So what the guaranteed maximum price is it sets an amount for construction that we will not exceed absent any change orders. So if we decide we need to change something or want to do something different, that's apart from this guaranteed maximum price. But if we build it as it's designed today, then we will not exceed the $47,216,307. That's the guaranteed maximum price on this. Now I want to show you the complete project cost, because remember I mentioned materials testing and commissioning and moving and furniture and fixtures and contingencies and all these other things. That adds up to that $4,820,789 that brings the total project cost for this project to $52,037,096, right? That is the all-in figure that we have. Now, the only figure that's set in stone after today is the $47,216,307. Right? So that's the guaranteed maximum price moving forward from here. It is slightly above where we had hoped to be. That's the reason for the delay. We had planned to originally do this conversation in December, then in January. And then what happened is once bids were received from subcontractors, once things started moving, they were not aligned with where the estimates had been up to that point. Right? So then we worked through, we did some value engineering on some things that were very simple, things like just changing materials, using material X instead of material Y, right? And then also, to Spa Glass's credit, they negotiated and worked with their subcontractors to bring down prices where they could, or to improve their overall cost on that as well. So all that is to say, the contract amendment that you'll be asked to approve is to set the guaranteed maximum price at $47,216,307. There's one other piece to that contract amendment. Originally, the contract included a clause where we would share any savings from that GMP. So if we built the building for less than the guaranteed maximum price, then we don't pay the guaranteed maximum price, right? But we would originally, under the original contract, that you approved back in June, we would share those savings 75-25 with Spyglass. Because of the delays in the process, that moved us past some pretty critical milestones in the design piece where risk was significantly reduced. And so we worked with Spyglass to remove that clause so that if there is savings, and I'm just going to be upfront and tell you based on everything we've seen so far. Remember that when we first started procuring or thinking about procuring a construction manager, we were at a $33 million project. Based on everything we've seen so far, I do not anticipate savings. Either way, if there are savings, we will see 100% of that savings based on the contract amendment that I'm asking you to approve tonight. It is important, I think, in your minds as well as ours, to know that the week of Thanksgiving, I traveled to San Antonio. Paul from AGCM traveled to San Antonio, and we were there with Mike when he opened the bids that came in from all the subcontractors. And after they've gone through and awarded and looked at rating and scaling those contractors, 8 to 12%, we anticipate 8 to 12% of the direct construction cost will go to regional firms. That's typically, for us regionals, about a little less than an hour drive from here. So that doesn't mean 8 to 12% of the firms are going to be local. That just means that 8 to 12% of that construction cost, roughly around 40 million, 41 million, 8 to 12% of that is going to be going right to local contractors. So that was important to us to make sure that we understood that. Now, there are some things that could change that. We just don't, based on all the things that are ahead of us, we don't anticipate that changing much, right? There's a whole buyout phase that comes toward the end of this. So, all right, lastly, assuming that you all approve the contract amendment tonight, we will be doing a groundbreaking ceremony at 9 a.m. on February 21st at the property site. And so you can expect to hear more on logistics and all of that from us. But we hope you'll make time to join us and celebrate finally seeing some dirt turned kind of in the ceremonial way. And then again in March, we'll see the actual work begin. So with that said, I'm going to ask real quick, do you guys have anything you want to add? They say they're good. So is there anything you guys want them to add? Are there any questions for me or for them? Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
It's just amazing to go from concept, thought, dream to being here today.
It's been outstanding to watch the process move.
I just have one question. Was this more work than the broadband?
A little bit.
Well, we appreciate you.
Although it's about the same dollar figure, just not our money, right?
All right.
This started a lot longer than even when Jesus was here. Got it talked about forever. We had the property over on Ben Jordan that we thought we were going to do it on. Right? I don't even remember when that was, but.
And it seemed like it was going to be a lot of money, and I don't know, the number 7 million is stuck in my head for that.
I think that was just the shooting range.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank y'all for all the effort and time y'all put into it, and I wish the team very well moving forward. Watch out for those contractors, though.
And how long is the project expected to take?
So we'll begin construction in March, and we expect it to wrap up in August of 2025, so roughly 18 months or so.
Wow.
So it's a big building.
Fingers crossed.
No hurricanes, no rain, no major freezes.
Don't even say that word, Derek. All right. Thank you so much. Anybody have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve item E1, which is the guaranteed maximum price for the new public safety headquarters building. Is there any further discussion? Can't wait to see it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. E2.
Item E2 is a resolution approving an agreement with Terracon Consultants Incorporated for materials testing at the Public Safety Headquarters in an amount not to exceed $110,072.
Okay, just one slide this time. I don't have to flip through much. Materials testing is something we do on a number of our projects. We've done it on several public works projects. For some, by statute, it is required. It is always highly recommended. With a project of this magnitude, we are doing everything we can to make sure we get it right the first time. Fixes and repairs are very expensive. And so through a Sourcewell contract, we have employed Terracon, a company that's very familiar to us, through Public Works, to test all of the things you see on the list. And we do have today, Josh from Terracon is here in case you have questions for him. So.
I don't have any. Important part of the project is the testing. All right. Motion.
I move we adopt.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adopt. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
E3. Thank you, Mr. Farrell.
Item E3 is a resolution hearing an appeal of the Building and Standards Commission's demolition order for 2409 Port Street.
Good evening. So this is an appeal of the Building Standards Commission demolition order. This property was a long-time bar nightclub, but has been vacant for many, many years. The Building and Standards Commission did just recently, of course, consider this property for demolition. At that meeting, we did not hear from the owner, who is James Washington. Of course, all notifications went to the owner, James Washington. But at that meeting, Mr. Stephen Demina, who spoke earlier during citizens communication, did attend the meeting and stated that he was purchasing the property from the owner and had a contract on it, but still was not the owner at the time of the meeting. He since appealed the BSC's order. Our senior code enforcement officer, our code enforcement supervisor, Stephen Solis, reached out to him again this morning to ask for proof of ownership through a deed. He said he did not have a deed earlier this morning, but it still had a contract for sale. And so this is where we are tonight to consider, for council to consider the appeal of this demolition order. So as I mentioned, this property was a bar at one point, but has been long since vacant. So any use really has been, the use of the property would be considered vacant. To bring it back into compliance as a commercial structure, especially like a bar or nightclub, would require full fire sprinkling and site plan modifications. At the BSC meeting, Mr. Domina did state to the commission that he did intend to open it back up as a commercial structure, but after some of the explanations of what all would be required, he did state instead that he would look at it for residential uses instead. Staff does recommend to continue with the demolition because of the concerns of just the structural integrity of the entire structure. The water filtration of the property has been going on for a really long time, and so there's concerns that the trusses are in really bad rotted shape, as well as the wall supports, the studs. And so with that, pictures are always worth so much more than what I can describe. So we'll just go through. This is the exterior envelope. You can see there are holes throughout the roof of the structure, which has led to water infiltration. They did receive an administrative warrant to enter and take these photos. But all of the systems are not in code compliance. And then, of course, the general concern is just the actual structural integrity of the overall structure with the roof trusses and wall supports are studs that are believed to be rotted. So any repair is essentially completely rebuilding the property. And so with that, staff, like I said, does recommend that the order be upheld.
And Mayor and Council, I did do a search of both the CAD records and the county clerk's office records to see if I could find a deed or a contract or something that indicates that this purchase is going through, and I couldn't find anything. So at this point, we have no evidence that the current listed owner is not the actual owner of this property or this building.
So can an appeal be brought by someone that doesn't have standing in ownership, or?
Technically, no, it should not have been. But
We continue to, there's a really short timeline because they have the option to appeal to district court. So the appeal, or the Building Standards Commission language states that an appeal has to be made on the next council agenda. And so we went ahead and put it on the agenda and continued to request the deed of the contract for sale documents up until this morning.
So just the question I have for Mr. Demina, do you have proof of ownership that you can provide right now? No, not a purchase contract, a deed that says you own the property. So you don't own the property. You don't have a deed with it in your name. The deed that is filed in the courthouse is in the other owner. So you are planning to purchase the property, but there's no basis then for appeals, in my mind. That's my opinion on it.
The one option would be to essentially table this item and allow him time to get a deed transfer to see if that is actually going to happen. But no, at this point in time, the record owner is the record owner. And so the standing, again, it went through because of the timelines. We want to give him a chance to show proof of ownership. But as of right now, I believe it's Mr. Washington is the owner of record, and we haven't heard anything from him.
You have a scheduled closing date? Oh, you can come to the front mic just so we can make sure and capture everything.
So we signed the purchase contract last month. So I can do the deed transfer within this month or next month. So if you give me the chance, I can do it. And the structure, I'm a contractor. I fix more waste property than this one. So I'll be able to fix it up.
So what's your closing date to close? I mean, the purchase contract isn't forever, right?
Okay, so I can do the deed transfer, the closing next month. Would that work for you guys?
I think somewhere I saw that you were going to start construction in March.
Yes.
So was the intention that you would be the owner and then start construction?
Yes.
Would that be the beginning or the end of March?
Somewhere in the middle of March.
Okay.
I noticed on the documents that were submitted, there was an estimate that kind of laid out some of the work that needed to be done.
Yes.
But that estimate didn't have any prices on it. Do you have an idea of kind of what you're looking at dollar-wise, just out of curiosity?
I have estimated for about 70,000.
Okay.
So, I mean, I can see tabling it and put a definitive date on it. There's really, I mean, I don't think he shouldn't be appealing it. It should be the owner that is trying to sell it to be appealing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and when you say that you had the estimate, do you have the financial means to do this repair in the time period that you're estimating, which is just a couple of months?
Yes.
Okay. So, Ms. Lacy, if we were to table this, would we technically need another appeal or need the joiner or the owner, or we would just be able to continue it if he became the owner?
If he became the owner, then he could continue his appeal. If he does not become the owner by the time it comes back up, either we need the owner to come forward or he's just simply not the owner of the property, and we would have to continue with the information we have right now.
So, I mean, there's a third option, when you stated it like that, you could table it for a shorter amount of time to ensure that the proper owner does the appeal.
Absolutely.
Would that be a possibility?
Sure. Yes.
Or you're gonna be in the same position, you're gonna have to
Right.
wait until the closing and the deed is in his hands. Right.
Or, I mean, we could also table it until the work is theoretically done, but I guess that leaves him.
table it?
Yeah, because
sort
then
of
you would
not-
be
But it's based on-
accepting
No,
the appeal
probably.
to him and not to the owner. I
Right.
think we need to cover all bases and have the owner either have, he has to have a document, a deed before we can demolish it anyway. Julie, are you going to be using CDBG funds to demolish this?
So the owner would have to apply for CDBG funds and provide clear title and, meet all the federal requirements. And we have never received any communication with the owner since this case was opened last March. And there's also, if you look on the staff report, 1,100 or almost 1,200 in back taxes owed, and we have close to 1,400 in contract liens. So this property has been worked regularly for high weeds and grass and junk and whatnot. And again, out of all of those notices and whatnot, we have never received any communication from the owner.
And those are filed liens that are recorded? Okay, so if
Yes,
this
so-
did close, those liens
They would
should
be,
get paid out of that.
if title would require it. If not, it would just push the obligation onto the new owner.
Under the new owner.
But if there's no title, then we might not see that money immediately, but it stays on the books.
Okay. So is there going to be a title policy issued and closed through a title company? Okay.
Just having a hard time even having this agenda item because the appeal to me isn't even valid. And I'm struggling with that portion of it. It's like, it's not, what am I tabling something that's not even valid because I don't even have an owner that's here appealing a demolition order for his structure? And I don't know how to really handle that in a manner, except for this is just an invalid appeal, but I want to see if there's some way of helping the gentleman.
owner
Right.
would
I
have.
think, I think the intent was to put it on the agenda because of the deadline that was suggested and giving the gentleman an opportunity to show ownership of the property, right? I understand, what you suggest, but there's several benefits that come from if he were to be the owner, right? Such as even if it does get demolished, he could, as the new owner, apply for CDBG funds and be more responsive for that, as an example, because the current owner isn't, right? So there's several benefits if he had become the owner of it. And so we gave him the grace, if you will, to be able to show that leading up to today's meeting, but he hasn't been able to produce that.
So the requirement is the owner appeal to city council with 7 days. Today is the 7th day, but the owner still has an additional 23, sorry, I'm too tired for math, to file in district court. So you have 30 days from the date of the Building Standards Commission order to file in district court. So the owner could still have a remedy if you choose to uphold this order by filing that appeal in district court.
Which the actual owner would have, at that point, would have to come forward. And so y'all can basically deny I understand what you're saying, Mayor Bauknight. You can just deny the appeal, despite the fact that we all agree that standing is not superb in this case. And that would allow the owner to get together and they could appeal it, decide how they want to handle that, and let them move forward that direction.
I'm just worried about setting a precedent that any interested party in a piece of property comes before us and appeals a demolition order, but I want to buy it. And we're just interjecting something in the process, and I really need is the owner here to appeal the demolition order against his structure. I just can't get past that part.
Yeah.
Well, that option would then mean simply to not take any action on the item
Yeah.
at all. for that same reason that he was unable to provide proof of ownership. And in essence, by not taking action on the item at all, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it simply just fails by lack of consideration.
So the orders are held.
So the order continues as is because we've deemed that it's not a qualified appeal.
More or less like staff pulls the item because it doesn't belong on the agenda.
Or that, I suppose we can always pull it
No, I mean, but that's kind of the.
halfway through it.
That's kind of the concept.
Yeah, it'll have the same effect, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And either way, the applicant does have additional 23 days before the deadline to appeal to district court.
And Mr. Demina, I hope this has nothing to do with what you're trying to do with the building, and I applaud you for trying to do it. I'm just trying to work on the legality of the even appeal, that it should be the owner appealing. You don't have an order for demo against anything that you own to appeal.
Okay.
If that makes sense. And I would encourage, and if we choose to go this direction, if we choose not to take action, I would encourage you to get with that owner and say, you know, you owe it to me to finish this contract. You got to appeal this to the district court. He has to be involved to ensure that contract can be fulfilled.
Okay. And if I get a deed before the 27 days,
You'll have 23 days.
23 days, okay, then,
You would have standing to file.
Then you would say, then you can just come appeal. Well, hopefully the owner would get the appeal.
Well, that'd be with district court at that point.
Right,
District court.
right. Hopefully the owner appeals to the district court, and it's got to be the owner. Even in district court, you wouldn't have the ability to appeal there either. It has to be the owner. You see another creative solution, Counselor?
Well, I'm just trying to think. I agree with Mr. Garza from the standpoint that I think there's benefit to the city for this gentleman to own the property and move forward. I know that an appeal to district court is going to cost even more money related to, retention of an attorney, more than likely. And I guess my question is, if we tabled this for a period of time, and in the meantime, they could close on the contract, would he step into the shoes of the current owner in terms of, would the appeal then be valid? Or would we be starting all over in terms of a new appeal? I'm trying to get a dynamic for that. And I understand what you're saying, Mayor, in terms of, you don't necessarily want to set a precedent. But I'm looking at this from the standpoint that closing pays liens that are owed to and money that's owed to the city. And it's taking a building and putting it back into the tax rolls, particularly if we're talking about residential. That's what I'm struggling with.
Does the clock pause too, if we table it?
Yeah, and I guess what I'm asking is that if we table it, this gentleman closes on the contract in the meantime, does he step into the appeal such that if it came back up, the appeal would now be valid because now he is the owner of the property when it comes before us?
Or would you have to restart the entire?
Or would you have to restart the whole, I'm trying to get a feel for that. It seems to me that his appeal would then be valid because now he's obtained ownership before it was finalized. But
you would have to re-notify him at the beginning for demolition, right?
Yeah, it restarts the process. I think that I understand what you're saying. From a technical standpoint, it seems like because of the question in ownership at this point, and council's hesitancy to move forward, that it might be, if you wanted staff to pull it or simply take no action, that's absolutely an option. Or, because if you're uncomfortable denying the appeal as it is on the agenda, then buildings and standards order would continue to stand. Again, they could take, and I understand what you're saying, Councilman Crocker, but they could take it to district court and get it figured out with the actual owner of the property, current owner.
But is the district court's decision merely based on whether or not the appeal was valid and the rejection of the appeal? I mean, do they get a trial de novo at that? I mean, do they start all over? Does it
That is a good question. I can get back to you on that one, but I'm not entirely
What I'm
sure.
concerned about is that even if he spent the money, went to district court, but we've created a situation where we're making him go to district court even though he doesn't have standing, I'm not sure we're really properly addressing the issue.
I believe it's its own separate appeal up to district court,
Yeah.
and they will determine that at that time.
Be the owner.
Okay, but why does he
So
go?
it'd have to be, I'm sorry.
I mean, I would recommend
It
that
would
he
still
get
have to
that-
be, yes. I mean,
get-
our
become-
recommendation would be to have the actual owner make the appeal, because
Become the owner within the next 23 days and file, or have the actual owner file would be the two options for district court.
But what I'm hearing is that we may not even want to go that route because of the expenses associated with putting them in a position to have to go to district court. I think one of Councilmember Crocker's questions, I'm not sure was properly answered because I have the same question, which is if it is tabled, the 23-day count is tabled as well?
No.
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 I don't think so.
Okay.
Staff does recommend that the order be upheld. The amount of work to bring this, even from conversion commercial to residential, which is of course less than if it needed to be commercial, is still a considerable amount of work. We're not sure that the actual superstructure, as far as the trusses or the studs, are not rotted completely through because of the amount of water that has infiltrated the building. So I understand the point of, it would be nice to see some properties rehabbed, but there is a point where we do believe that these properties are too far to be rehabbed. And this is one of those cases.
Well, back to my question. If we demolish it, charges go back to the owner?
So the owner would, if we could communicate with the owner, it isn't a CDBG eligible area. So they would have to fill out that paperwork. Or yes, if the owner continues to be non-responsive, then it would come out of our demo budget that then would be another lien to the property and eventually probably go to a tax sale.
Which could end up, being acquired through the tax sale as part of our infill housing program that the Housing Finance Corporation is undertaken, right? So, I mean, there could still be a path towards redeveloping this lot to become a productive lot, as Councilmember Crocker described. It would just be a lengthier, more longer path to that, as opposed to it being salvaged in its current condition.
So we could table the appeal for 23 days, of which he has time to close within 23 days, or for the owner to appeal to the district court.
Or if we were to deny the appeal and uphold the building standards, he would still have 23 days to appeal to district court.
Right, but by having it still on the table.
Right, but if we don't table it, if instead we,
But
all right, go ahead.
So if we tabled it, though, and he obtained that ownership documentation and could come back in front of us after that 23 days and say, I am the owner, now I have standing for this appeal to be taken up, so you have 23 days to close, or the owner has to go to district court.
I'd like a clarification. If it changes ownership hands, then does it have to go through, the building and standard thing is to destroy a building that belongs to a certain person?
The order, no,
it's
the
a
order
property?
goes, the order is tied to the property.
The order ties,
Okay.
yeah, it's tied to the property.
Okay.
I just think that's, trying to get it all in where there's an opportunity for everybody to do what they need to do. So the owner who's not before us and hasn't done the appeal still has a path if he wants to appeal. But Mr. Demina has the opportunity to close within the 23 days that are remaining and come back before council and say, now I have standing for this appeal that is on the table, and it can be voted on from that standpoint.
I think you're talking 2-3 meetings, I think we should table it till then and give this man an opportunity to be the owner and appeal it.
You know, I was feeling that until Ms. Fulgram just now said, we still think that there's more work that needs to be done to this building to bring it up to livable standards. And, you know, it makes me wonder whether it's better to go ahead and have the building demolished and move through the process of, it would still be eventually available. The property would be available for purchase after the tax sale. Mr. Domina could purchase it at that point and start from a clean slate.
Well, you can,
Continue
can
to purchase it,
attach
apply
some,
for CDBG funds to demo it as well.
conditions to the appeal, that construction be finished in a certain amount of time. Right, some qualifiers on the appeal
Right.
to ensure that it gets done and it doesn't sit there again.
True.
Okay, I have a question. 23 days from today is the 29th of February. We only have one more meeting on the 20th that he could come up to us. So what happens then if he goes past the 23 days? Because if he can't get it to us by the 20th, he's going to be out of luck.
He would lose the right to appeal to district court.
It would have to be by, the 20th, by that meeting.
Yes.
But could you not do it, just table it till March 5th? And say either the owner appealed to district court or he has ownership and his appeal stands?
Well, he said that
I guess we're outside of that 23 one.
his anticipated closing was the middle of March, so
Well, that
it
doesn't
would
work.
have to be the second meeting of March if we were to table it with a realistic.
Well, he only has 23 days
Yeah. It's
Right.
February 29th.
to get the whole thing done. Because that clock, the 30-day clock
Right.
on appeal, and it doesn't stop the clock if we table it.
But if we table it, we're already saying that it's not really a valid appeal.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of just saying this is an issue that we'll take up, that we're interested in considering regardless of.
So we're tabling something that's not valid. So I
Right.
don't think that we should
Right,
table it.
exactly.
That's why I was asking if he
Yeah.
Yeah.
did purchase the property, is he stepping in the shoes? But I'm not sure that you could do that, given that there has to be notice and there has to be those sort of things.
I think it's,
And it's not, there's not even shoes to step in because it's his appeal, not the owner's.
Right.
I think the biggest problem we have is we have an owner that did nothing, and this gentleman's in a bad spot right now, because it wasn't adequately addressed by the potential seller. I mean,
I kind of come back full circle that I think we're all sympathetic, but it's just not, it's not, and I am concerned too about setting a bad precedent for,
Yeah.
Right. No,
you know, how far are we going to go?
I'd really like to see this property, something done with it and put back, but, you know, given the way it fell out, it's just, and the timing, it's just difficult. If the owner were here, that would help, obviously, so.
If I don't get it done by February 20th.
20th? Yes.
Okay, and the owner show up, would that work?
February the 20th is the last meeting that you can bring it up.
But you can't do an appeal here anymore, can you?
I think your option here is if we upheld the demolition order, then you would be, and I'm not giving legal advice here, but as I understand your option, it would be if you could somehow gain some type of ownership interest in the property that would give you standing to then appeal to the district court, that may be your only chance to salvage that transaction for you and then be able to do what you want to do. The problem is, I think we would like to help you and put you in a position to do something, but I don't think we have the ability, because of these facts and circumstances, to actually put you where we'd like to put you. But you may be able to get there through the next step, which would be through the district court, but you're gonna have to close on that property first, is the way I'm interpreting this.
I think
Unless he gets the owner to do
And
the
Ms. Lacy,
appeal.
correct me when I go
No,
wrong.
you're right,
there.
or unless he gets the owner to do it.
Or the owner does it, correct.
So I actually went to the property and take a video So the rafters and the trusses are not bad like it showed right here, just the front where the roof is damaged. That's
right.
where you can see it, but the other areas is in good condition.
Right, but that doesn't have any bearing on what we're trying to decide, and I'm not, the condition of it and all that, and the appeal just isn't valid coming from you. And so it makes it, that's the circumstance that makes it very difficult for us to make a decision on something that you don't have the legal ownership of the property to even make an appeal on a demolition because it's not yours. Is what it just boils down to. So as Mr. Crocker's saying, take ownership in the next 23 days, appeal to district court, or have within the next 23 days, the owner appeal to district court and make your case with the judge, because we just can't accept the appeal because you're not the owner.
And the Building Standards Commission had similar issues or heartburn about consideration, and ultimately the reason they ordered demolition is because the owner wasn't there and the owner wasn't responsible, and the owner is ultimately responsible for this property at that time.
Right.
I think at the end of the day, what I sensed, at least we talked about that we'd like to do, we're just not able procedurally to do.
Yes. Okay, so do we need to vote to reject the appeal?
Or uphold the order?
Uphold the order.
Uphold the
Vote
order.
to uphold the order?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
I move that we uphold the Building Standard Commission's order.
I'll second.
All right. And one of these votes we don't like, but all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Reluctantly, aye.
Opposed? Motion carries to uphold Building and Standards Commission's demolition order. E4.
Item E4 is an ordinance adopting the Unified Development Ordinance by replacing Chapter 21 in its entirety and deleting Chapters 5, 9.5, 12, and Article 6 of Chapter 20 for the City of Victoria Code of Ordinances.
Finally, at the third reading, once again, I have Chance Sparks here to go over a very short presentation.
All right, I thought I'd change it up on you, Julie, come up on the right instead of the left. So really happy to be here for the third reading this evening. This will be a short presentation because there is not a lot that has changed since the second reading. Just a reminder, the whole purpose of this is really improving how your ordinances function, how they are supported by state law, and really embracing the market-based approaches of Victoria in a holistic manner. We are literally at the end of this process. This is the last public action potentially. Recent activity on the 16th, that was the second reading. We brought that with a comprehensive red line. We presented that article by article in a very exciting and riveting presentation. One of the directions we got out of that was direction for an opt-out provision that would last until June 1st of this year, mainly so that we've got projects that are already in design process, they could opt to stick with it. Generally, though, this ordinance has a lot of benefits, so we can see people choosing just to remain with it and continue forward. So just to kind of outline a couple of things that are active right now from talking with Julie, to talk about what applicants benefit from this UDO, which ones might choose to opt out. So you do have 4 items that are active right now. One is a failed deed approval that if it were under the new UDO, it would actually have a platting exception. So they actually wouldn't have this issue. They'd be able to proceed without issue. Second one is a large car dealership that is working through a code enforcement issue that would actually have a simpler path because they wouldn't be triggering a full site plan as they would now under your current ordinances. There's a variance requirement where there's additional process involved that variance would be unnecessary to to allow for a 49-foot lot created by plat. There's a provision that allows for a 10% staff reduction authority, basically to help deal with essentially the quirks of parcel configurations that happen in any city. And then a vacant 10-acre tract that wants to add a storage building, that it would normally be exempt from a site plan because it's agricultural use, which is covered under 21-147. So those are four things that would probably say, yes, let's stick with the current UDO. There's a couple that might opt not to. Contractor insurance requirements, for example, that are included within this. A contractor might choose to defer getting their insurance until June 1st. Also, there's an ETJ plat that requires the parent tract to be greater than 10 acres. Otherwise, you have to plat it all. This is actually a really common provision in most cities. You don't want to end up with remainder tracts that fall below key thresholds. You should go ahead and just like plat it out and be done with it. Doesn't add substantial cost because you're already surveying the whole property anyway. It's a matter of just formatting and some things like that on the plat. So those are some of the pending applications that are active right now on this. Hopping into adjustments to the draft since the second reading. We've gone through and done a very heavy correction of basically typographical errors. Most of these are issues of capitalization consistency, making sure that, for example, the term commission is always capitalized, but no impact to meaning or content, and some heading corrections to make them a little bit more descriptive, just to make the navigation a little easier. The establishment of that deferred date for the opt-out. We had a serial section numbering error that we still can't figure out how it happened. But all the hyperlinks were going to the correct place, but the number was not changing. We don't know why that was happening, but we fixed it. And then we found a car wash operational hour provision that we had forgotten to delete in the second reading. Clean up some cross-references for all the TABC regulated businesses, just to directly reference them over to Chapter 14. That's where all your business regulations are found. Relaxed a size standard for accessory buildings, and provided the documentation for the owner occupancy condition. That's something that makes enforcement a little bit easier down the road, is to define how you define ownership for that. It seems appropriate given tonight's conversation. Simplified some site visibility triangle measurements, and there were some appendices that are part of your current ordinances that, after looking at this final document and verifying everything, they are appendices that are no longer necessary, so we're able to clip those off. So those are the adjustments that you see this evening. There is an item that Julie asked me to bring up here, and that's potential parking regulation consideration. The proposed development ordinance does call for parking for restaurants as a 1 space per 100. That's kind of just going with a pure square footage measurement. Your current ordinance calculates restaurant on a 1 per 3 space, or per 3 seats. And that's actually based on the seating capacity that's determined through building code occupancy. Generally speaking, you can fit a lot more than you can fit generally a couple of tables, so likely around 8 to 10 seats and about 100 square feet, give or take. Restaurant fast food, those calculate that 1 per 100. So that's just one amendment item that Julie brought up that y'all might be interested in. We are fine either way.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
Just, could you further explain what you're talking about when you say seating capacity determined off seating area building code occupancy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Walk me through that just so I understand what that calculation is.
Yes, so you would take the actual seating area of a restaurant. So let's say that seating area is 1,000 square feet on your restaurant plan. And you have kitchen area and other parts of the building, but your seating or your table area is set. Then you take that square footage, you divide it by 15, which is what those tiny little numbers on that building code says.
Okay.
You divide it by 15 and you get a number. And then since it's 1 per, that tells you your occupancy. That tells you how many people you can, with seats considered, because you see there's that table there in the building code as well. How many seats you can fit in per the building code. So if you take 1,000 divided by 15, I don't know what that number is, but, and then it's 1 per 3. So then you divide that number by 3, and that's how many parking spaces would be required.
So is that occupancy, when you say the usual space or the seating area, who defines what the seating area is? Is it the owner or is it
Yeah,
an outside? For example, if you have, let's say an owner has a large building and they say, we're only going to seat in this part of the building. Does that come into play in that?
So I guess we would look at it as, you know, kind of the open area of seating. I mean, we ask people to submit the plans. I mean, your kitchen area is very delineated. If you were to have a vacant room and call it as like storage, then we would not consider that. But if it's one big open space, we would consider all of that your seating area.
Okay. So, but like extra rooms that aren't really connected to the main space and that sort of thing don't count?
But we would be very clear, you can't put tables there, that needs to be storage
Sure,
area. If
right.
they were wanting to do like an event room or something and have that as tables, then that would be a conversation with the applicant for sure. But yes, generally, it's just that general open area unless they're saying, yes, I'm gonna use that room for seating.
Okay.
And then if they say they're using it for storage and they end up putting tables there, then it becomes a code enforcement issue.
Sure. And do you anticipate that determination or that calculation is going to yield more parking spaces required or less parking spaces required than using the one space per 100 square foot?
So it's at about a 1,500 square foot room with like, say, a 2,000 square foot building. It's about a wash. The lower or higher you go, the 1 per 3 seats usually ends up being a higher requirement. So I had run some calculations. Let's say there's as a hypothetical earlier, so I know these numbers, but we can always get a calculator out and run as many numbers as you want. But if you had, say you had a 3,000 square foot building and 2,000 square feet was the restaurant area and you had another 1,000 for, you know, hostess and kitchen area and stuff. 2,000 divided by the 15 divided by the 3 ends up about 44 parking spaces. On the 1 per 100, a 3,000 square foot building, because you take into account the kitchen and everything, that's 30 parking spaces. So in that scenario, you're required to have 14 more parking spaces than the 1 per 100. And the reason the 1 per 100 actually usually works up a little bit easier and why it was listed in our current code as fast food is because fast food generally doesn't have as much sit-down restaurant because you have the drive-throughs. And so a good portion of that business, you know, you have a certain size kitchen to handle all of the customers, and so a certain amount of the customers are drive-through, which is why there's a lower requirement.
Yeah, because I did the math, and on 1,000, you get 22 parking spaces. So the 40 would be for the 3.
So in that 1,000 example, if that 1,000 square foot dining area was part of a 2,000 square foot building, that 2,000.
No, I just went with the seating capacity determined, because she said you take the 1,000 divided by 15.
Yeah, correct. You're correct in that it's 22 parking spaces if there's 1,000
Right.
1,000 square feet dining area. What I'm
Yes.
suggesting is that if that 1,000 square foot dining area is within a 2,000 square foot building, and you look at it from a per square footage standpoint, that would be 20 parking spaces. So in that small scenario, you would get lower parking requirement taking the square foot by 100 approach.
The problem comes though when that ratio of, you know, seating area to unused building area, like if you had a 4,000 square foot building and you only had 1,000 square foot of seating.
So we do use, especially like if it's a multi-use building, like a tenant, like a multi-tenant space, we only would calculate for that tenant space. Or if it's a multi-use building that has, you know, an office area or storage area, then you would apply office parking for the office area if it's not an office of the restaurant, because those are, you know, generally very small. Like say it was an insurance office in the same building. We would calculate that area, that square footage on the floor plan. And the building code also has, you know, the separation standards where you have to have the fire walls between the different uses. So it's very clear to delineate an office use between the restaurant use or residential use between the restaurant use. And so we would separate out and say, okay, in this use, whatever use it is on the parking table, applies to that use. So if the restaurant area is only, 2,000 square feet out of a 4,000 square feet building, but you've got another 1,000 of residential, that's 2 spaces, another 1,000 for storage area, that's one space, and then you would calculate the restaurant space. So we do that all day long when we're looking at multi-use developments.
What happens if it's not multi-use? Let's just say we have empty buildings here. We have older buildings, and we're an older city that's been a patchwork of stuff, and people want to do redevelopment and maybe have a larger space that isn't multi-use, but they're not going to have that many. Let's say it's a new restaurant. They're not established. But we're going to demand that they have a huge parking lot based upon that, but they may not have the customers because they're a new restaurant. Not Freddy's.
Even established restaurants, I mean, I hate to pick on any one person, but I think if you go to Texas Roadhouse, that is so very popular, they're always out of parking versus some others literally next door that will have a lot of open parking. But if they have the potential and that's part of their building and they're using it for that use, we would count it because you never know the popularity of any use. But if they legitimately aren't using it and it's partitioned off and it's like a storage area or something, then we would allow them to count that area as storage. But ultimately, when it comes down to the use and the dining room size, I do believe the 1 per 100 is a greater benefit.
How would, I'm going to throw just random ones out. How would, Thai Orchid was redeveloped. How would Thai Orchid fit in this?
I had to guess.
That's a large house. That's a large building.
They're only using the first floor of that building, I believe, for the restaurant, which if I had to guess, would probably be about 2,500 square feet, maybe 25 spaces,
But this says gross floor area of building. Is it multi-use?
It's up to you. The top use is a vacant or storage use. It's not. There's no activity up there.
See, this is also one of the issues with planning, because somebody can have a large building and not have enough parking spaces, and so suddenly modify their plan so that they're using a much smaller area so that they have just that number of parking spaces. Then a new company comes along, a new owner comes along, sees this building with great potential, wants to turn it into another restaurant, which is already in existence, and now we have a problem because we don't have enough parking spaces because we didn't plan properly.
Do we have the parking spaces or does the owner? I mean, if you don't have enough parking spaces, don't you cut off your own capital? Your ability to make money? That seems to be an owner issue. I don't know if that's a city
It leaves the city being asked to grant a variance because we've already created the monster, and now we're stuck granting a variance or having them try and get some extra spaces from somebody nearby or something like that.
Or people don't go to that restaurant.
Well.
And that's capitalism.
I have a question about what constitutes does the parking space have to be on the property?
No, there's a provision in there that it can be, you can have a
So it
shared.
could be on the street?
No, it does have to be on off-street private property, but it could be an adjacent
agree.
lot.
They could agree with neighbors to
You can have a shared parking agreement.
Yeah.
It's very common with church uses that aren't utilizing their parking except on Sundays. But if we're looking at the actual specific regulation of 1 per 3 seats or 1 per 100, the 1 per 100 is generally a less restrictive number. It will usually require less parking spaces than the 1 per 3 seats, which is why we recommended.
Can you put
I have a crazy thought.
Can you put both in there and allow the
We could do, or the
proposed business owner
of
to
the
pick
lesser
the
of
lesser
each?
of two?
I mean, it will always be the 100, but we can definitely do that.
Well, I guess one thing that confuses me about something you said, and I'm curious about it. So, like on the Thai Orchid, you said, well, they're not seating anybody upstairs, and so they're not using that, so we wouldn't count that. But if we go back to one space for 100 square foot of gross floor area. Gross floor area to me means the entirety of the building, even if they're not seating someone there. So,
It's always just been, I mean, my entire career industry standard, it's really based off of the use.
so if I had a 5,000 square foot, but I was only seating in 2,000 square foot, that's,
And it's
we
used
would use
off
a
of-
2,000?
Yeah, it's used off of building code too. So like, for example, if Thai Orchid wanted to, expand upstairs, they haven't received a certificate of occupancy to use the upstairs. So there's those tie-ins together too. You would have, there'd be building modifications and things to use that upstairs. And so that's where we always get that kind of, what are you using? What's the certificate of occupancy area that's being granted, that's being used?
I guess I look at it from the standpoint that if I'm a building owner and I don't have a second story, but I have, that's not being used and they get to not count that. I have area on the first floor that's not being used, but I have to count that. I feel like I'm being treated differently than the other folks that don't have to count what they're not using. And so that's why I'm trying to align those two.
But you would only use what is like I said, outlined on the floor plans. And so, if you wanted to wall off and say, I'm not using this portion of my building, and it's, just like an upstairs, like I'm blocking it off, and you're saying, I'm not using that, then that could be a storage use or a vacant use. So that, it's all delineated by that floor plan through the building permit process.
So when it says 100 square foot of gross floor area of building, is that actually 100 square foot of gross floor area building in use?
Mm-hmm. For
Should
that
it
use.
say that?
Well, it's.
Because that
I don't
makes a
think it
huge
restricts you to the
difference in my
building. I
mind.
think it's gross floor area without anything after that. So, because it would be applicable to a lease space within, say, a strip center, or if it was an entire building, or something in between. It's very common for buildings to have a vacant space that's completely unused, not used for storage, but just unused.
A vacant use.
That's what I'm kind of looking for now, is to see if I can find.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an industry standard that we are used to parceling out based off of those floor plans.
Is the word gross floor area is what the question? Because you would say just floor area or, I don't know.
I mean, certainly this is easier if you're always building new development, but we are a city of 200 years old, and there is extensive redevelopment, which I think causes heartburn for everybody.
Why don't you put it as an exception in historic district?
What if it's outside the historic district?
Is it?
I just know that the parking is really expensive,
Yeah.
and to the extent that I have to build parking that I'll never use, if I'm buying a business, that's just a barrier to me in terms of, because it's based on the fact that I don't use all of my building.
We've always been very flexible when it comes to separate spaces. But if you have a 2,000 square foot wide open space and you're opening a restaurant, and you're saying, I'm not using a third of this. I mean, with it not being separate and delineated, it encroaches. And that's where we're going to say, no, that is your space. But if you want to put a partition wall and door and say, no, that's storage or something, that's just been a long practice. So Chance has verified, it doesn't say building, it just says floor area.
We're always trying to get away from long practices that are not written and write it correctly with this UDO.
Like I said, it's not actually
It's
specified.
easy to specify that in the table where we can just say gross floor area of use, and that would cover it.
I mean,
It's specific to restaurants, so gross floor area of,
It's an industry standard, so, I mean, you pull up any city's ordinance, and it'll have some variation of language, but that's how it's practiced from city over city over city.
It is a restaurant. Don't forget that you have to have parking for the cooks and the wait staff.
Oh, sure.
And all that.
Sure.
And I'm just, there's a development on North Main Street that has a restaurant, that has some businesses, and then has a huge building that's vacant and has been vacant for a long time that clearly doesn't have enough parking. And so I don't want to encourage that either. And that is capitalism taking over, and it leaves the city with a vacant building.
I like the idea of giving options, including
Either
these as
or.
all options, and say, pick the lesser, pick the one you like. But I would also like the idea of including in that gross floor area of the building in use for, or, you know, seating use or dining service use, something along those lines, so that we clarify. Because what I hear you saying is the Thai Orchid's a little bit different because it's physically separated by an upstairs, downstairs versus not being physically separated in a large area unless they put a partition up. But that partition being physically separated would create a smaller usage area that would then fall under there. So, I mean, more options are better as far as I'm concerned in terms of, hey, let's pick the one that fits for, because I know that every building's different when somebody's trying to redo it and somebody's trying to repurpose it. But if we can give them more options to say, we're okay with any of these, I think that's a way to help reduce those or lessen those barriers to entry for those new businesses. Personal opinion, anybody feel free to address
I'm just
it.
trying to think of how to change that gross floor area and how to define, not the building, but the gross floor area of intended restaurant area or.
Gross floor area based upon the requested certificate of occupancy.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the table actually just says gross floor area. I guess we've just been interpreting building. I don't think it actually,
It doesn't say
it doesn't
building.
actually say of building. So we could just add an asterisk that parking requirements will be based off a square footage of use.
I think that off-seating area in the building code occupancy might be some good language to kind of blend that with the 1 space per 100 square feet. Is that kind of the area that you're trying to limit it to or trying to define? The parking comes from that.
I look at it from the standpoint of trying to define the gross floor area that's being used for the identified purpose, which, to me, the parking has more to do with seating than it does anything else with how many people are you gonna have in there. And I recognize you have to have employee
Yeah,
parking.
I mean, all
that
types of
sort thing.
uses do generate some sort of parking demand, which is why,
Right.
we have the whole table of uses. So I think to accomplish what you're trying to do, if we just, the amendment should state that there'd just be an asterisk added to the table 2-1, that parking will be based off of the listed usage of, I just said it.
Roll back that tape.
Yeah, yes.
We can watch it later and figure out what.
Yeah, that what I just said. But basically, I mean, I think we all understand what we're saying is that it's based off of the amount of parking is based off of the use of that, the portion of that use of the building. And we will definitely wordsmith that. And then the lesser of 1 per 3 or 1 per 100.
Okay,
Easy.
I like the options concept. So.
Yes.
Except, don't we have to come up with the wording
Yeah, let me think on that. I literally
to
just said
amend it to approve it?
1 per.
We can. If we can get some wording, we can make an motion to amend when we have a motion to approve on the floor.
We have a consultant that we're paying, maybe he can come up with some wording.
And what's the next slide then?
Well, I'm good. I have not do two things at once. Good.
Okay, so requested actions and next steps, right? This is to,
Yeah, so this evening, what we're requesting is an approval of the ordinance on third reading with it should read as the opt-in or opt-out date of June 1st, 2024. And then we always say, and any adjustments to support codification into the code of ordinances. That's mainly in case there is some quirk of putting this into your code of ordinances that happens, a table numbering system or something like that doesn't blend, that gives your city secretary space to make an adjustment. And then this amending language that Julie is quickly typing.
well, I can fix that with a table or something till the end of the meeting. right? We can table till the end of the meeting or not take action on until the end of the meeting. But the opt-out provision, let's talk about that for a minute. I thought we were going to opt into it with an effective date of June 1st.
The opt-in will be a lot more difficult on my staff to administer because the number of people that are benefiting from it are much higher. That's why we added those examples of who, if they follow the new ordinance, I don't know if you want to go back to that slide, then, you know, it's easier for them to get through the process. And so when people are calling saying, I want to do this, and we just explain off of the new ordinance because knowing the old ordinance would be more detrimental to them, then they can just move forward with their application rather than explaining, well, this is what the ordinance says, but you can opt into this new ordinance. And then, of course, we have to have the paperwork side that's saying they're going to opt out or opt in so they verify they're saying what they want. And so if we can just move forward with administering what is benefiting pretty much everyone based off of these. And our staff is always, our philosophy is how to get to yes. So we're always going to tell people what's the easiest path. But there will be a lot more people opting in than opting out.
So we talked about an effective date of June 1 because you needed time to get forms ready. I'm curious then, how do you set an earlier effective date if you're not prepared with forms and everything else?
I mean, the forms are, it's not so much that, it's the other part is if my staff makes an oops, because they're so trained on the old, then it's easier to kind of go back and say, you know, oh, they're administering off of the new, but they told you incorrectly, instead of saying, oh, we're administering off the old, but we told you, you know, we didn't tell you about all this option. It kind of makes them have to start over. And so I guess it feels like it's less of a got you to just go ahead and start training the staff and start getting it, because really, as far as what we've been tracking, people are going to be benefiting from this, except for the contractor licensing, which will be the standard.
I don't understand how you can opt out of just certain provisions.
You can't. You opt out of the whole thing.
Right.
It's all or nothing. And so if it goes into effect on February 6th, because it would go into effect when it's written or when it's approved, right? I think because I asked
No,
the
it goes into
same
effect.
question.
Sorry, it would be effective 10 days after that.
10 days after
For
that.
starter,
Then, as she's saying, it would be training staff on the new. But if somebody wanted to opt out because the old was better for them for whatever reason, then they would opt out. Otherwise, staff would be able to start operating on the new. And
Why would a contractor say, I'm working on this project and I want it to fall under the new UDO, but I don't want to have insurance?
Well, so that's a little, because it's all application based, right? So the contractor is generally, I mean, they're pulling a permit, but and building code is not changing. So this is more your site plan and your platting rules. So that's would be like, you know, civil core or whatever. So you have a lot of different parties and a lot of different applications, even for one project. And so it's not so much that it would be, oh, we're opting out on the platting on this side, this setback, but not this setback. It would be like processes. So your plat would follow 21 now or UDO 21 future. But a plat is not the same as a contractor pulling a license for the whole year. They're separate processes. So each process would be based off of the code that's most beneficial, is how I would understand the implementation of it.
And we're
But
just
each
talking about
process-
general contractors, right?
Yes, because MEPs already carry it.
Right. Does it,
The opt-out language also follows the vested rights provisions under state law. That's Chapter 245 Local Government Code. So if you're kind of replicating the state law a little bit, if you go with the opt-out, opt-in or opt-out, I am agnostic on, but it has the same effectiveness either way.
I feel it would just ultimately be less confusing because of so many of the relaxations we've made in the UDO. we can just tell staff, or just tell applicants, go this path, it's the easiest path, rather than having to explain twice.
Okay, does that give adequate time for your staff? Because you said you don't want to create confusion
So
if you're opting in, because the staff might be confused about the code.
Yeah, so
What changes?
The plan that we have, that we did not have at the last meeting, is to have, we have President's Day coming up, and we've talked to the staff. And so everyone come in, so we don't have to shut down the office, and have basically UDO boot camp on President's Day. They would still gain those holiday hours into their holiday bank, so they wouldn't lose out. But so that's really the plan of, and we've been already working our planners. So, and especially the planners that they're very much aware of what's been going on because they've been a part of the process a lot more. It's really my three ladies at the front that we need to train. And so the idea is that, and they're being trained on just a few provisions, accessory structures, setbacks, the parts that they deal with that don't go to the planners or don't go to the plan reviewers. And so that's the idea, and what has changed between the last meeting and this meeting is having basically a UDO boot camp on President's Day.
So when somebody comes in, I mean, is your staff going to tell them, here's what the new UDO is, okay? Oh, and by the way, you have the ability to opt out. And the only reason I ask that is that if you're going to tell them, which I think is probably important that we do, that we communicate that, you're gonna have to explain both of them anyway. Because the first thing I'm gonna say is, well, if I opt out, what does that look like?
So we were thinking we'd have signs and notes on our application in the interim.
Okay.
And then if they ask, what does this opt out, then of course, and your contractors and the site plan designer, Civil Corps, Urban, all of them, no issue, that's real easy. It's your citizen, your homeowner that's coming in and working through them on their own, which is admittedly a much smaller portion of our clientele.
And those are the folks that I'm concerned, I wanna make sure that we're communicating with them exactly what their position is as to the two UDOs during this period.
We always communicate path of least resistance. How do we get to yes? Because it's not it is really hard when you administer an ordinance day in and day out to tell people no. I've had grown men sit in front of me and cry before because we told them they had to get thousands of dollars in a driveway or whatnot. So it is never our intention to mislead people and say, no, these are the more restrictive rules, you should do it this way. And that's really the whole purpose of the UDO. I mean, I think it got really muddy, the waters got really muddied when we talked about the parkland dedication and whatnot, but the whole goal of the UDO was ultimately to make it a lot cleaner and a lot easier. So when it comes to the new construction type stuff, a lot of it was copying, pasting, because that stuff is the stuff that works. What wasn't working is the retrofitting of the old properties or the affordable housing kind of side of making it a little difficult. Everything had to be platted, and a manufactured, home buyer, had it's thousands of dollars of upfront costs to put a home on a lot. So those are the things that this UDO is drastically reducing in paperwork and cost.
So Julie, this is going to affect that form that you give people when they buy the trailer homes and they have a checkoff list?
Yes.
Remember, I've told you that that's a major concern of mine because, they're not told everything. And make sure those forms are signed by your staff and make sure that the owner understands what he's signing when he says, okay, I'm going to do all this. Because like you say, sometimes they don't have all the cost in there and they don't know they're gonna have to put a sidewalk, a driveway, anything like that. It's very important that that gets,
We've definitely been brainstorming on that. Celeste and I even had a conversation today about taking all of the old forms and putting them in a folder that nobody has access to so they can't inadvertently be pulling them. So it is an opportunity. We were noticing our suite numbers are wrong on all of our forms. So it definitely is an opportunity to, really clean slate, fix all of the things.
You know, I understand that this is a complicated thing, but the whole thing is, if this UDO passes, it makes it easier for some people. And that's what we should be all about.
We just want to make sure it doesn't make it harder for other people.
Yeah.
Well, we have until
Well,
June
it's gonna be, it's
first.
gonna be, it's always hard when there's change, okay?
Well,
It's always hard when there's change. We're giving people options, okay? We could just pass it and do away without the options if you wanted to do that. But the thing is, we're still, those people that would benefit from the old way can still benefit from it.
I know, I just understood it as opt-in to the program because the way I heard it was, gives us time to get trained, get the forms put in place. And that's what I had heard at the last meeting. That's,
And I do appreciate the idea of still the delayed and the opt-out versus because if there is an inadvertent, oops, we did not mean to be that more restrictive on that. We already know that we will have to bring an amendment back because we got notice from FEMA that the floodplain regulations or the new maps are taking effect July 24th, but we don't have all of the language from FEMA yet to make that into this. So the plan is that amendment will be back because, you know, FEMA's will mandate it, then we have to do that. But also to keep a running tally between now and June 1st, and if there are any oops, and I'm hoping they're not, but it is a huge document and it's hard to think of everything. And so there will be that opportunity of if there are any unintended oops. Of course, there are sections that people will opt out, like I imagine the contractor requirements, that is intentional. We do want it to go into full effect on June 1st.
so contractors register every year with the city.
And it's a rolling, so if your license expires July 28th, you have to get a new one July 28th. So it's not, they don't all expire January 1st. So as they expire, they renew them.
But when they go to pull a permit on June 1st, are they going to have to show their insurance?
Yes, on June 1st, but not May 31st, is my understanding.
But it doesn't matter about their registration date. It matters
Oh,
about the June 1st.
No, I'm
date.
sorry. I misunderstood your question. How I understand it is, that is a requirement to get a contractor's license. So if you are you pulling a contractor's license on May 31st? You have another year. But if you're pulling a contractor's license on June 2nd, you are required to submit it because it's a requirement to get your license, and your license, once granted, is good for a year.
Do you plan to allow everybody to re-up on May 31st?
Well, it's based off of their current.
Well, say I'm going to go
License.
ahead and re-up now. I'm going to change my effective date. I'm just curious.
No, generally how we've always handled it is you can go ahead and apply if your license is expiring, April 30th, but your new license won't take effect until April 30th, 2024.
I mean,
So you can submit it now.
you have
but-
some policy in place, though, to prevent everybody from saying, what's the registration fee?
$250.
$250 from coming in on May 31st to save them a year's worth of paying for the insurance requirements.
It would be based off of your existing license.
Okay.
So if your existing
And we're going to
license,
communicate that as
Yes,
well.
we can-
So
we
that
can
we
put
don't have a
signs.
flood of people coming in the last week of May.
we can,
And if they do, we'll call you and say, thanks, Jeff.
Way to plant the
yeah.
seed.
No, I just want to make sure we have that in place and we have a plan that makes sure that, otherwise I could see that happening.
Yeah.
I would do it.
And thanks for the answers on the parking. Again, I was just trying to get a clear picture of that, because we talked about.
Sorry, I know sometimes my answers aren't clear,
Well,
but
we-
it's not
we
always
talked about
easy
that
trying
we wanted
to.
to reduce, some of our
Yeah.
parking requirements, and I was seeing scenarios and seeing things where what we put in there, I think in some instances may reduce it, but in some instances may increase it, which is why I like the option that let's go with the lesser of.
So do we have some language that we can consider for an amendment?
Yes, we
Should we
do.
get a
So-
motion to approve?
So it'd be a motion to approve, and to amend the table of uses to state that parking calculations shall be based off the use or portion of use within the building.
Say again, based off use.
Based off the use or portion of use within building,
Oh, that should have the, sorry.
within the building, sorry.
First, we have to have a motion to adopt.
Right, but
Well, I've still got another question.
you bet.
I'm not the most well-versed on food truck parks. How big are food truck parks usually?
We don't have one in Victoria.
I understand that, yeah.
I honestly, food truck parks is much more than development services. It really is the fire department, health department, even I think city secretary has some licensing. So food trucks kind of came up, the parks came up a few weeks ago, and my recommendation is that ultimately there needs to be a committee of, because honestly, I think development services has the smallest dog in the fight when it comes to food truck parks, because there's so many concerns about the waste when it comes to food trucks, like pretreatment and stuff, and then of course the health department, and so it really needs a committee to look holistically, and we can do that between now and June 1st.
Well, my question is because in the parking of here, there, and I imagine a food truck park being an acre, maybe a half acre, multiple trucks, a little park. Everybody, kind of goes there and hangs out. But if it's an acre, that's 435 parking spots because we're at 1 per 100 square foot, just like a restaurant.
I think there's a separate.
And that's just the general area. So it's not an enclosed space. I mean, you're just, unless I'm
what we see
wrong in that regard.
I come from kind of food truck park mecca.
Yeah,
and your typical food truck park is usually around 4 up to 6. Once you get beyond that, it actually gets kind of difficult to manage for the owners. Below that, and the math gets lousy for the owners. They are actually a pretty hard business to make money at as a property owner and have stability in your trucks that are there. They usually are on smaller lots, usually infill locations. You don't generally see them. I have not seen one on an acre. What I've typically seen is somewhere maybe around a half acre or so. A good portion of that is taken up by the food trucks themselves and their maneuvering space to get in and out, and some type of restroom facility. So you end up with a dining area or calculation that's pretty.
So we would only calculate the dining area from there versus
and that's
the whole
where
area.
Y'all mentioned actually wanting to have like the double methodology for the count there. That's where that could actually come in handy because outdoor spaces are sometimes a little hard to define.
Honestly, they probably need their own parking calculation that a committee could.
Yeah,
come
1
up
per
with.
100 square foot just seemed like a lot of parking.
Special use.
Can you?
I know that there were, there was talks years and years and years ago about a park and then, having, children's playground and all the stuff in there. It didn't come to fruition, but maybe one day. The right investor. Just didn't want to be an impediment to that.
I move we adopt the UDO.
I second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Is there any amendments?
Yes, can you tell us what that section is? Because
So adding a
what you said.
footnote to table 2-1 that says parking calculations shall be based off of the use or portion of use within the
Table
building.
2.1, adding a note
What-
and
what-
an asterisk to.
That
I
is
think
based-
when you asked Julie that question, she said, "Let me read it even faster than the first time."
Because, I'm sorry, but based on the use or portion of use in the building doesn't make any sense to me.
I think when you put it in the context of the entire table, because it's a table with all of the different parking calculations.
Go back to that one that has that little table in the corner.
Yeah.
So what we're amending.
Like what
Well,
page is
it's
that
on the
table
land
on?
use table, which
Right.
I don't
Oh.
think we have a slide of.
That's not it up there?
No, that's out in the building code.
Table 2.1.
Oh,
And where is,
thought that was table
It's the
2.1 in the
land
quarter.
use table that is the large table that says the use and the parking requirement and the lot size and the setbacks and the building height.
I'm trying to
Yeah. It's
get an amendment that makes
starts on page
sense.
69 of the draft.
13.
Part of this.
I don't think so.
Okay. So where do we want to put in the
Asterisk at the bottom, she said.
Or a footnote as a 1.
restaurants is, yeah, further down.
Well, I think we would apply this to all uses, because that's our standard practice.
Yeah.
Because I see the same thing for.
Right, yeah, it would just be for
Right.
restaurants. It would be for the entire table.
Agreed, yes.
And so
Very
the asterisk would be based on use or portion of use in the building. It's still,
So we would strict the parking calculation, which is based off of the square footage. So when you would tie the square footage and with the asterisk at the top.
based on the use as a restaurant in the
Or any of
building.
those uses.
Any of the uses,
Okay, right.
because it still applies to everything in the table.
Okay, all right, so I would like to amend table 2.1 with an asterisk on the calculation that says, based on the use or portion of use within the building.
And then or adding to that amendment to the lesser of 2 of the restaurant requirements as currently written.
And for the restaurants, put the lesser of 2.
So currently.
Blending what we currently have with the 1 per 100.
1 per 3 or 1 per 100.
The lesser of,
the 2
the lesser of those 2.
for restaurants.
I make that motion. I don't know if there's going to be a second.
I will second that,
All right.
because I understood what you said.
Good.
I'm not sure she did. That'd make one of us.
All right. So we're going to add asterisk as defined by Ms. Scott.
Well done.
Right,
Well
Julie.
With Julie's help. We all know what we're doing, right?
Right.
We're
Yes.
just trying
Right.
to qualify what that portion of the building is used for that specific purpose
And
to
I
do the
promise I
calculation.
understand y'all's intent, and we will administer it as y'all are intending.
Well, we want to make sure it reads right, so
Right.
if you're not there ever, that
Yeah.
someone else doesn't interpret it differently
Right.
without amending it from the dais. And then also
Restaurants.
lesser of the 2
Correct.
parking
calculations.
calculations. All right. Got a motion and a second on the amendment. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All right, now we have an amended motion on the floor to approve the final reading of the UDO. Are there any other amendments, discussion? Nope. Well, since there's no other further discussion. Oh, all those in favor of approving the amended motion to approve E, did I say that right?
A lot of approves.
It would be
Approve
to
the
approve the
amended-
UDO as amended.
The motion as amended, thank you.
We've already done the motion.
Yes, thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations, Julie. Great work by everybody.
Yes.
That deserves a round of applause. That by far was the biggest item that came from the 2035 comp plan that was adopted in 2016. And so here we are finally.
I think I'm taking a vacation.
But not on President's Day.
Except for the
You got
16th.
President's Day coming up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Can't even take a 3-day weekend.
Actually, I'll see you at the bicentennial too.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, seeing that discussion took an hour, how are you on your city manager reports?
We for sure can skip executive session.
Okay.
We can for sure table eminent domain.
We can table that again.
But it'd be nice to get through the 2
Okay. And we're all
staff reports.
mindful of the 15-minute time limit?
You won't need it. I've
10.
been told if I'm not done in 5, I'm gonna be demoted. And Jesus had nothing to do with that conversation, so. Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So tonight I'm gonna talk about what the Environmental Services Department does for the most part. That includes solid waste, community appearance, and now weedy lot people that work with the code enforcement folks. And so Maybe. Next one. There we go. So one of the things that we wanted to bring to highlight this year is talk about our cleanups. And something new that we put in this year was we went to Keep Texas Beautiful, and they have a calculator for volunteer time. Because I think it's important when we talk about the number of volunteers. We had 4 events last year, totaling over 850 volunteers. That's 4 half-day events. That's great. But when you look at the Earth Day cleanup that we did in April, and you take those hours that those 524 volunteers put in, it calculates out to about $14,900. You'll see the same for the fall sweep. We had even more people. It's 722, so that's 20,000 there. 1 too many, 2 too many. Now I'm going backwards. All right, we're done. How's that for 5 minutes? Slide forward, James. All right, so here we go. So we had the Queen City Phase 1 and Queen City Phase 2, and so you can see the dollar amounts there. So just when you look at those 4 cleanups, you take the calculator that Keep Texas Beautiful puts out there, that's $54,396 worth of volunteer work that was done last year just on those 4 cleanups, 2 neighborhoods, and all across the city, which I think that's fairly impressive for what we do. And I think Christy and Keep Victoria Beautiful gets a lot of that credit. So we also do clean sweeps. These clean sweeps are done by people who just call in and they want to do something. Well, we want them to do something. So we'll pick out, they may pick out the area, we may pick out the area. We did 10 of those, picked up 58 bags of trash and had 78 volunteers. They cleaned up about 7 miles of roadway. So we just finished in August our first year of the Weedy Lot Abatement Program. If council will remember, that was something we wanted to try, and it's worked very well. We did 397 properties. We had to send 63 properties out to contractors because of the size of the property or the size of the job. Our 2 employees just could not, they don't have the equipment or the time to really do those really big jobs. So we're talking, you know, mowing 7 acres or 10 acres or cleaning up where there's just an ungodly amount of waste there that has to be hauled off in trailers and so on. But our average time is about an hour per, which is even better than what I had projected. Everybody's seen the art project on Laurent. Looks great. And one of the things that we're looking at is now we're kind of looking at some stuff, what we could do with the underpass at Navarro. So currently, community appearance folks are maintaining 14 landscaping flower beds, 4 entryway signs. We recently finished the sign on Highway 77 out by Outlaw Pass. 4 container projects, and then we have 15 tree beds that we maintain. Most of that is part of the Green Ribbon project that we completed last year. How many of you been to the landfill? We're fixing to do a flyover, thanks to AJ and communications. They worked with us to do some drone footage, and so what you're seeing is kind of a good aerial view. And so that new runs a long way because that's 244 acres that will soon be landfill that's currently farmland.
James, thank you for not having a 4D experience up here.
That's the capped area that we closed. That's another view of the new landfill area. And then you'll get a good sight here shortly of the compost facility. For those of you that's the compost facility. For those of you who may not have been out there and seen what all we do out there.
Love the music, by the way.
I actually asked him why there wasn't rock.
It's pretty amazing that
He's going to fix it next time.
You got that whole area, and I didn't see any trash at all, anywhere.
Well, that's thanks to Republic, and, well, our permit says we have to keep it cleaned up. So we do. And that played a big role in us not having anybody fighting us on building that expansion. Republic does a really good job out there. Another thing I wanted to touch on, last year, we talked about the cart audit. This year, I just want to talk about the sheer number of carts. People are like, well, there's so many carts. How many carts are there? So we have about 20,153 customers. That was as of the end of December. But we have 5,953 additional carts. That's everybody who has an extra cart. It's $6.50 per cart. We have the same 20,153 customers for recycling, and we have 2,977 additional recycling carts. So that just gives you that about a quarter or a little more than a quarter of the city now has at least one additional extra cart. So we're going to talk a little bit about curbside recycling. Last year, about 1,721 tons. What did we do right? Mixed paper and cardboard are our two biggest things that we recycle. Plastic 1 and 2 comes in third, and then the aluminum and tin, which we never expect to get a lot of aluminum tin because it's worth money. They can take it and do it themselves. What do we do wrong? Well, contaminated items, and you're going to see a lot of stuff coming out about this now. Christy and staff are working hard to try and get the message out. Contaminated items, those are all the things that we don't want. Yard waste, clothing, tents, igloo ice chests, tarps. That makes up 31% of the items not accepted. Another big one is unrecoverable recycling. What is that? That is stuff that's ruined in the load because of liquids, paints, mixed in with food waste. Those are things that a recycler cannot, they're recyclable, but cannot be used because of the condition that they're in or the substance that covers them. And then you'll see plastics, glass, and plastic bags are actually not that large. In e-waste, we have none. And the beauty of e-waste is we have the HHW program, which takes care of all that e-waste, which brings us to the HHW program. So electronics makes up 66% of that program. And then you can see 12% chemicals, filters, sharps, latex paints. Sharps is important to bring up. So people who have diabetes have to take insulin shots or possibly other shots. You can put those sharps in a plastic container and they can pick those up. So keep that in mind. And then, you have your aerosols, batteries, and other things, which make up about 2%. So what are we doing next? We're looking at Highway 59 and Highway 87 for welcome signs. We're looking at possibility of a Navarro art project. We've received some beautification grant funds of $2,500 from Lyondale-Basell and a waste diversion public engagement grant for $15,000 that you'll see the articles starting to come out on that public engagement about recycling, about how to deal with certain things. That kind of goes along with the grant that we applied for, that you gave us permission to apply for with the Golden Crescent Regional Planning Commission for that information, that one-stop shop for information. And then, of course, the Class 1 accepted at the landfill. And with that, I am done for the second time.
Hey, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
The Laurent underpass was such a huge hit. We talked about Navarro before, but because of the walls along there being different, it was kind of put off, but it's back on here.
We actually have some designs from before. So if you notice on Navarro underpass, when you go through, there are flat spots. I think they're like every 4 foot, Christy, or so, 4 to 6 foot. So what it will be is a mural that's done every 4 to 6 feet.
Okay.
It may not be a picture mural similar to what we have. It may be something color. Art. It will be art.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anything downtown artwork wise?
Nothing that I'm working on. That would be a Danielle or Kate question.
Okay.
We would be happy to partner.
Okay.
The street the street art is great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leasack. Y'all do a great job.
5 minutes, Mr. Mayor.
All right. I'm
Wow,
taking
you
that
got up
from
there
you.
fast.
I'm running with it. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the last one. So the last one for, the best one for last. So Mayor and Council, I'm glad to present the annual report for the Parks and Recreation Department.
Cutting into your 5
Okay,
minutes.
so this is our mission, is to improve quality of life by providing a comprehensive system of parks and recreation, cultural programs to our citizens. This is what we do. At Parks, 7 key things. One of the major things is staffing the Parks and Recreation Commission. So the 2 major accomplishments this year in 2023 is the opening the duck pond and also the dog park. So 2 years ago, this is what the duck pond looked like. It looked terrible. It was a blight in our community. As you know, it had structural issues, and Hurricane Harvey made it worse. So 2 years later, this is what it looks like today. So we invested in the duck pond with the help of TPWD, and this is what you see now. And I hope you have had a chance to go and look at it. So it's just beautiful. So we're getting very positive feedback. You can see all the amenities that the duck pond has, and again, I encourage you to go out there and visit.
I'm surprised you got pictures without people everywhere.
Yes. So it's fishing time because we do have fish in the pond. And you can see the people fishing and so forth. Again, the duck pond has been a major hit for the city. Everyone loves it. The feedback's been positive. So we currently have rainbow trout in the pond. We will add catfish this spring because the trouts will die when it starts to get warm. And again, you need a fishing license if you are 17 and older. And the max you can take with you is 5 fish per day. So again, a big hit in our community. The second major accomplishment is the dog park. So the dog park was in the Parks Master Plan, and it was championed by this young lady that you see, Easy Drain, and her dog Lena. So we have completed the dog park, and I hope you've had a chance to go and visit. It's very popular, again, a big hit in the community. We have all the amenities of a major dog park. We have benches, we have waste stations, we have play equipment for the dogs and so forth. So again, a fantastic amenity for the community. And here you can see the dogs having a great time with their humans. And every day there are people there with their dogs. We also in 2023 provided 20+ recreational programs. That's more than last year. You know, youth sports to include baseball leagues, high school summer leagues. One of the big things that we did this year, which we're very proud of, is the Christmas parade and of course the fireworks and the continued success of the youth hunt program. And thank you, Mayor Bauknight, for bringing this to the community. So we had our 3rd youth hunt at the port, and we had 5 participants, and they had a great time. Each hunter harvested 2 animals, one buck and 1 doe each. In regards to parks maintenance, we've done a lot. You know, we have 17 parks to maintain. As you can see on the slide, one of the most, to me, greatest accomplishments this year is that we planted over 153 trees in our parks, 150 trees. We are working to add more trees in our parks, and that's one of the things that I'm very proud of that we've done this year. The community center, a very important asset to us. One of our goals is to have more private rental events at the community center. As you can see on this chart, in 2021, we had more city government events than private events. But over time, in 2022, 2023, that has changed. We're having more private events at the community center than city government events. The livestock show continues to be our largest event. And then the next largest event, quinceañeras, birthday parties, and weddings. And we've also started a process with Populous to develop a master plan for the community center. We kicked off the process last week or 2 weeks ago with the steering committee. And we do have a survey that's out there for individuals to complete to tell us what they see and how they would like to improve the community center. Finally, we have our golf course doing very well. We have, this year, 2023, we did 32,000 rounds of golf. That's about 90 rounds per day. That's what we average. 32 tournaments this year. And we spent a lot of time improving the driving range. We built a parking lot to have more parking at the driving range, sidewalks leading to the driving range. We built a golf cart parking lot, installed a turf mat at the driving range. So we've done a lot to improve the driving range. And this is it. Thank you very much. I just want to thank the park staff. I'm the interim director. I want to thank them for all the hard work, and thank you, council, for supporting the Parks Department.
Thank you.
Less than 5 minutes.
No, it's
We
over
do have
5
time for
minutes,
Allison.
but Mr. Swanson had yielded some time back, so I was generous and gave it to you.
I'll yield my time.
All right, no city manager report, and we'll put the eminent domain presentation to another one. Is there anything further?
Nope, unless you've changed your mind.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
That's right.